Hey everybody, welcome to Marcus's Candid Corner, and I'm Marcus C. Williams. I'd like to talk to you about Governor Kathy Hochul, her implementation and use of the National Guard in the New York City subway systems, why it matters, what the greater plan is, why you should be concerned, and how this is really a testing ground for martial law and what I'm calling mini martial law.
Point one, I'm redeploying nearly 1,000 members of the New York State Police, MTA Police, and MTA National Guard to conduct bag checks in the city's busiest transit. You'll start seeing them at the tables, making sure that weapons are not being brought in, working in concert with our New York State Police, as well as our NYPD. Because no one heading to their job or to visit family or to go to a doctor appointment should worry that the person sitting next to them possesses a deadly weapon.
I'm going to do my best to lay this out to you in as simple and sweet fashion as possible so that you can follow all of the points in the highlights so that you know, so that not only are you better educated, but if you need to explain to somebody why this is so important and why we should be paying attention and even why we should be standing up and taking action because of this, you'll be able to. So let's jump right into it. So first, let's start off with what the National Guard is and what the police are. The National Guard is a military unit that is only responsive to the governor of the state. Governor Kathy Hochul, which is the governor of New York, is the commander-in-chief of the National Guard. Now, the police are responsive to their local municipality, whether that's city council or the mayor. And like if you have a town, it might be the town council or the town mayor. Now, in certain areas in New York State, you might not have actual police, but you have the sheriff. And the sheriff is supposed to be responsive to the county leadership, either your county executive. And what's different between the sheriff and the police, with the difference between the National Guard, is both the sheriff and the police are responsive to the citizens. Okay? Not just the citizens, but the jurisdiction that they're within, the people in charge there. The National Guard are only beholden to the governor. That's it. It's a very important difference. So let's dig a little bit deeper into this. The National Guard right now in New York City is in the subway system with assault rifles. At least that's what Governor Kathy keeps telling me that they are. She calls them assault rifles when I've also heard people call them long rifles or just regular rifles, right? Like, they're just guns, right? Like, that's what they are. Firearms, that's what they are, long and short of it. But our governor tells us that we should be scary of assault weapons, but you're putting a military force into a public setting with assault weapons which we're supposed to be so scared of. We have to really be attentive to the language that they use when they don't want something, but the language that they switch it up to when they want you to be in favor of something. So, but I digress. This military unit is now searching people's bags. Okay, that's not legal. Okay, what's going on in the New York City subway system right now is a violation of about 5 amendments in the Bill of Rights. Okay, there are only 10 amendments in the Bill of Rights, and this violates the First Amendment, Second Amendment, to bear arms, the Fourth Amendment, okay, search and seizure, okay, the Eighth Amendment, and the 10th Amendment. This is really real, okay? She just basically erased 5 of your rights from the Bill of Rights. And they said, well, Governor Kathy, what if somebody doesn't want their bag to be searched? Well, I guess they won't be taking the subway then. My word. That's unjust. That's not justice at all. That's not right. And that's unconstitutional. But Governor Kathy has already told us many times before that it doesn't matter. She does what she wants. She does not go by our Constitution. We heard her say that out of her own mouth when there was a ruling by the Supreme Court saying that the gun laws that we had were unnecessarily restrictive, preventing people that should be able to express their Second Amendment rights to actually own firearms. The governor got on TV and she said, I'm not listening to them. I do whatever I want. I'm not joking. I'm not making this up. I wish I was. I do what I want. And then she proceeded to institute even more harsh Second Amendment restrictions. Very concerning. Very concerning. So that shows you where she's at. So she doesn't care about the Constitution at all. So this whole process has stripped away half of the Bill of Rights from the New Yorkers and from our citizens. We have to be very attentive to this. They've put armed military officers and personnel with assault weapons to perform what should be policing duties, which aren't even policing duties because, again, those go way beyond the Constitution, right? And they're unconstitutional, so the police wouldn't be able to get away with something like that. So this is very concerning. Now, let me give you the run-up to why this is so concerning and how we got here. And I'll do my best to keep it simple and keep it brief. Under Governor Cuomo, when Kathy was his lieutenant governor, they let out a whole bunch of prisoners, many of them violent felons and stuff like that were serving long sentences, as well as some that were child touchers and others that did grievous things to ladies that shouldn't be out on the street. Okay? Many of them very serious repeat offenders. They closed prisons, many prisons. Okay, they're still closing more and more prisons to this day, Kathy is doing. Okay, and then she wants to turn them into housing. You make that make sense, but we're not talking about that today. So, let a lot of prisoners out, close down prisons. After that, Kathy comes into power. She takes over the governorship because Cuomo resigns. Okay. Then she goes and she defunds and demoralizes the police in New York State. Now, I need you to understand about what's going on at this time. They're also instituting laws that they're calling criminal justice reform, right? And I use quote fingers on that because it sounds good. It sounds nice. But the impact was very traumatic, okay? Even if you want to say that it was supposed to be positive, it was very adverse on the community, and there's very clearly many amendments that need to be made to the laws that are becoming problematic. So bill reform is one of those laws. It's also been called cashless bill. On its face, it sounds good because they say, hey, we shouldn't lock up people that aren't able to afford bail. There's some thought process there which makes you go, what? But it sounds reasonable. It says that poor people are unjustly being held. But what the law turned into was let everybody out, that nobody goes to jail. Everybody gets an appearance ticket. Okay? So because people are getting appearance tickets, they're not taking crime as being a serious offense. So they just feel, oh, well, I can just do more crime. And it's encouraged much crime. But worse than that is another law called raise the age. Okay? Raise the age makes it so anybody under 18 is actually only charged as a juvenile. No matter how heinous the crime it is, even if they stab somebody 21 times, even if they burn somebody to death, if they rob a bank, okay? Even if they do something very nasty to somebody in broad daylight that is of a sexual type of offense. Seriously, this is real. Okay, those are all real examples that I just gave you. They're still charged as juveniles. And you'll be like, wow, Marcus, that's really serious. That's not really the half of it. Because of the way that New York State laws are structured, because they're being charged as juveniles, usually these type of cases will go to a more serious court but they're going all to family court because they're being charged as juveniles. What happens after family court, after there's an adjudication, after the whole process gets done by the judge? After that, they seal the record, and then they expunge the record as if the offense never happened. So it's as if they never committed a crime at all, essentially. So you can see many repeat offenders, but it's always like it's their first time almost. Okay? And that's a very serious issue. So you let everybody out of jail, you close down the prisons, you defunded and demoralized the police, leading to a lot of police leaving the force and making it hard for the police to recruit. So now they don't have enough officers to serve and protect. And you've made it so that criminals are not locked up and put in jail and are not held. So essentially what's happened there is it's caused a giant rise in what? Well, a giant rise in crime. And after that, then they let all of these illegal aliens in to New York State because we are a sanctuary state. So they let them all in. Many of them are very serious criminals. Some are terrorists. We know this already. And many of them are very vicious, and they're forming gangs or are already parts of gangs, which they brought their criminal activity up here with them and are starting more criminal activity. Now, the most concerning part of that is, right, they're not all vicious criminals, okay? Some are just criminals because they're illegal aliens, right? And that's wrong because that's a crime. But let's talk about the people that are not the vicious criminals. But most of them aren't able to read or speak the language. Then they're not skilled workers. So they're not skilled workers, and they're not able to read or write the language. So what jobs could they really get if they could get jobs, right? So they'd be competing for very low entry level types of jobs, which anybody that's just getting into the workforce, a kid with a work permit or somebody just getting out of high school or somebody that hasn't graduated high school even, that flunked out, would be going after. So many of them wouldn't even be able to get a job, aren't able to get a job, even if they can get a job, right? Because some aren't able to work because they're here illegally, which is a whole nother conversation on how that whole process works, but we're not talking about that this evening. So, with that being said, so now, listen at where we're at. They let a whole bunch of criminals out of the jails. They closed a whole bunch of the prisons. They defunded and demoralized the police, making it so there aren't a lot of police, so that the police aren't able to protect and serve the communities the way that they need to. Okay. So now you got more criminals on the street, less police. Then they've got it so other people that are now committing crimes aren't going to go to jail. They're not going to be locked up. They can't be held at all. You can steal cars. You can arm robbery people. You can beat them up. You can beat up an old person at the bus stop and you'll get out. So that encourages other people who under normal circumstances wouldn't commit crime are now like, well, crime isn't being punished. Maybe I can commit crime too. But worse than that, now it creates more hardened criminals because they're starting to see that they can get away with more and more and more. And like any child, if you've ever babysat, the more that they think that they can get away from, the more they'll try you. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So after that, then they let in illegal aliens, increasing even more crime. So where they could have just encouraged more policing and actually held criminals, the governor who allowed all of these laws and all of these policies to be put in place, remember, this is the important part, she allowed all of these laws and all of these policies to be put in place. She hasn't moved back on any of them. Now she says she's going to send in the military to the subway.
So you're going to have the National Guard there, and they're going to search bags?
Randomly.
Randomly.
There is a statistical...
What happens if you don't want your bag searched?
Then go home. We're not going to search you. You can say no, but you're not taking the subway.
How are you going to enforce that? I mean, it's hard to get people to pay the fare right now. You still have so many people evading fares.
Well, guess where these individuals are positioned? right near the turnstiles. So you want to look in the eye of a police officer or an MTA transit police or a National Guard and still skip the fare? Go ahead.
With me saying all of this, I need you to understand that the military going through people's bags is a violation of the First Amendment, okay, the Second Amendment, your right to bear arms, okay, the Fourth Amendment, unlawful search and seizure, you got the 10th Amendment, okay, and even the Eighth Amendment, because they're denying entry to people who won't allow their bags to be searched. This is unreasonable, to say the least, and it's the beginning of denial of entry to certain areas. This is just a test, people, to see if you'll go for it. If you go for them stripping your rights in your Bill of Rights, in the Bill of Rights that we have as part of our U.S. Constitution. We have to stand up, and we have to explain to other people why it's so serious that we stand up now. This is just a tip. They're putting the tip in and they're not even giving you any lube, but they're just easing it in. Okay? It's still rough, and they know it's rough, but they figure that if they just go in slowly, you'll let them do it. So we can't let them do it. Okay? What we're experiencing right now will go further, and I'll tell you why. And just looking at New York City, this is the beginning of a denial of entry to certain areas, neighborhoods, and communities. They've got a thing called congestion pricing in New York City right now, where they're putting it so that you have to pay extra to drive in certain areas of New York City. So that means if you got to go to work there, you got to pay extra. If you got to go through there, you got to pay extra. Okay, and this isn't like the expressway or anything like that, like the throughways where you pay extra money because it's a throughway, which don't get me started on that. That's not for tonight. But when you go on there into this neighborhood, you have to pay to go into the neighborhood. Now, the neighborhood where they've put these pricing issues in are high class, upper echelon, very rich and wealthy neighborhoods. So it's where the rich people live. The people who can afford that extra $20 a day to drive in that area. Okay? That it doesn't impact them at all. But you know who it does impact? The regular everyday man that works and has to drive in the area. The regular working class individual that has to work and drive in that area. The mother, okay, that has to work and drive in that area. And this is something that is oh so serious. So now how will they enforce that law? There aren't enough police. We already went over that. Okay, so then I promise you this will happen. They'll start using the National Guard to do that. And then it'll be denial of entry to certain neighborhoods, people. You need to understand that this is coming because it's already in place. They've got the wheels in place. They're turning. And we have to wake up and see what's going on. All of it's there for us to see. We just have to put it together. It's very simple. That's why I'm laying it out for you. Because I believe that you have a very good mind in your head. And that you can critically think. And that you can do reasoning. Because it's important. We have to, all of us now, more than ever, to see and understand what is really going on. So let me tell you this, once that starts in New York City, it will spread to the rest of the state. In Rochester, the city that I live in, there's a high crime rate and not enough police. It'll spread, okay? And I'm very concerned that it'll be here soon because it's starting down there. And under the guise of the lies that they're putting it under right down there, they'll use the same lies up here. Now, let's be clear. There might be a lot of crime in the subway, but that's not abnormal. And the majority of which isn't a good thing, but the majority of the crimes that happen in the subway in New York City are not done with weapons. They're not done with weapons. We just had somebody today get pushed onto the subway. Okay? It's really serious. I got pushed onto the subway rails. You know what I'm talking about? So it's really serious. And how did anything that they did stop that? Nothing. They put the military down there. None. It didn't stop any of it. So really, that's not what they're doing it for. They're just sliding it in, easy, but they're still not putting any lube in it, so it's rough. And that's why it's not settling for most people. And we need to wake up and we need to push back against this and say, no, we don't want this. No, this isn't right. No, this is unconstitutional. This is wrong. This is not how we're supposed to do things in our civilized society. This isn't how things are supposed to be done. And you know it as well as I know it, that this doesn't seem right at all. And it doesn't seem right because it's not right. And that's why we must stand up. That's why we must speak up. And that's why we must start to galvanize and unite others behind this issue. This is very, very serious, and it will not stop here. This is the beginning of what happened in Nazi Germany. We have to wake up now, people. They already used the National Guard during COVID to check people's vax passes and deny them entry to different places like, well, places with food like grocery stores and stuff like that. Okay? Nursing homes to see their family members who died alone and crying for their family members. Don't think that this won't expand, because they've already tried it and tested it during COVID by making it so that it's more normalized to see the National Guard doing civil and public service duties, okay, when they shouldn't be. They have no business doing any private sector type of orientation of work, any type of public civil type of work. That's not what they're there for. They are the military. And they've made people easy and think that it's okay. Some people have said, Marcus, I saw them at the airport during COVID. It's not that bad. It is. It is. It is an occupying military force that is only beholden to the governor of this state, which thinks that she can do whatever she wants and already says that the Constitution is not worth toilet paper. So we must all understand the gravity of this situation. I'm going to leave you with that. You think on that. You see where it's going. This is the beginning, like what happened in Nazi Germany. Please wake up. We must fight back now. We must stand up. We must hold our elected officials accountable. We must say no more, because if we don't now, there will be nobody to say it later. Okay, and remember, stand up, speak up, and don't shut up. Take action. You be blessed and be well. I'll catch you later.